It's March 2nd, 2026. A drone breaches the Saudi air defense net and hits the Ras Tanura refinery. 500,000 barrels a day gone. Black smoke over the Gulf. Saudi Aramco shuts the whole complex down. That drone was Iranian. The same country that Saudi Arabia had welcomed back with a handshake just 3 years earlier. Embassies had reopened, ambassadors exchanged, a deal brokered in Beijing. That country just hit the kingdom's most valuable piece of infrastructure. So what does Saudi Arabia do? It keeps the channel open, warns Tehran, then quietly hits back. And then it invites 30,000 Iranian pilgrims to Mecca. That is the Saudi-Iran relationship in a nutshell. Pipelines, Patriot missiles, pilgrimage. They are all connected. But how? I am Shubhangi Sharma. Let's find the link. Start with a map. The Persian Gulf is 989 kilometers long. Iran sits on the north shore. Saudi Arabia sits on the south. They face each other across one of the most strategically valuable bodies of water on Earth. The Gulf ends at the Strait of Hormuz, 20 to 25% of the world's oil, 20% of global LNG. It all passed through the strait until the war. That geological fact has shaped every decision both countries have made for 50 years. Now, two numbers explain this rivalry. 85 to 90% of the world's 1.8 billion Muslims are Sunni. 10 to 15% are Shia. Saudi Arabia is the custodian of the two holy mosques, Mecca and Medina, the most symbolically powerful title in Islam. Iran is the largest Shia majority state on earth. After its 1979 revolution, it declared itself the vanguard of political Islam, challenging Western influence, challenging Saudi legitimacy, challenging the idea that a monarchy could lead the Muslim world. The fundamental difference is a 1400-year-old disagreement between them about who should have succeeded Prophet Muhammad. Two countries, two claims to lead the same faith. Two claims to ultimate power. But there's another number that drives this rivalry. In 2024, a heavily sanctioned Iran earned $51 billion from oil exports. Saudi Arabia earned $237 billion. Saudi Arabia has the money, you see, the holy cities and the global Muslim majority. Meanwhile, Iran has the ideology, the proxies, and the choke point to work with. A deeper problem for Iran, though, is Saudi Arabia's choice. With its history of ties with the US, Saudi Arabia made a choice after the 1979 revolution in Iran. America, US troops, US bases, US weapons. The Patriot missile battery became the symbol. American technology on Saudi soil, guarding Saudi oil from Iranian missiles. In May 2025, Trump signed a $142 billion defense package with Riyadh, the largest in US history. Even though American security has limitations, as we have seen in the Iran war, Riyadh keeps choosing Washington. But one price Saudi Arabia just won't pay: recognizing Israel. And I've made a whole video on that for you to watch. And yet, leaked CENTCOM documents confirmed Saudi Arabia coordinated with Israel on regional air defense during the war, shooting down Iranian missiles together. No formal recognition, but the Patriot batteries and the Israeli radar have quietly been on the same side. Now, in March 2023, Saudi Arabia and Iran announced that they were restoring diplomatic relations. 7 years of severed ties had ended, in Beijing no less, brokered by China, not the United States. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had a calculation. The Yemen war was bleeding the kingdom. The Houthis, Iran's proxies, had spent years lobbing drones at Saudi oil infrastructure. The 2019 Abqaiq strike alone knocked out 5% of global oil supply overnight. Yes, the Houthis did that. The same group backed by Iran. Making peace with Tehran meant, in theory, turning that pressure off. It meant stability, the precondition for attracting the foreign capital that Vision 2030 required. But it also meant something else. Saudi Arabia was signaling to Washington, we have options and we can make sweeping geopolitical shifts without the US even in the room. On February 28, 2026, the US and Israel launched airstrikes on Iran. Command centers, missile sites, IRGC headquarters. In the first hours, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed. Saudi Arabia said almost nothing. The Washington Post reported that MBS had privately lobbied Trump to make the move. Saudi Arabia denied it. Weeks before the strikes, MBS had called Iran's president personally, assuring him that Saudi territory would not be used against Iran. Now, both things can be true, and that's the point. Saudi Arabia wanted Iran's nuclear program gone, but it also needed to keep talking to Tehran because the alternative, total rupture, was more dangerous than the war itself. And then Iran hit back, missiles and drones across all 6 Gulf states. On March 4th, Iran decided that the Strait of Hormuz would be closed. Vessel traffic collapsed from 3,000 ships a month to roughly 5% of that. 20% of global oil and LNG just cut off. Now, Saudi Arabia expelled Iran's military attaché, and then in late March, the Royal Saudi Air Force allegedly launched covert strikes on Iranian drone and missile sites on Iranian soil. The first time Saudi Arabia had ever directly struck Iran. This was mostly symbolic though. Saudi Arabia had fought Iran now, talked to Iran, and de-escalated with Iran simultaneously. Now look at the map again. Draw a line from Up Cape, Saudi Arabia's oil heartland on the Gulf Coast, 1,200 kilometers west across the desert to Yanbu on the Red Sea. That's Petroline, the east-west crude oil pipeline built in 1981 during the Iran-Iraq War for exactly this scenario. Essentially, the Saudis thought, what if we don't need to pass through the Persian Gulf? What if we turned west to the Red Sea? Oil could then move to Europe through the Suez Canal and to Asia through the Bab el-Mandab Strait. By March 28, 2026, the Petroline was running at full capacity, 7 million barrels per day. Crude exports via Yanbu hit 5 million barrels a day. Saudi oil was flowing to Europe, China, Japan through a route that totally bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's strategic masterstroke to close the world's most critical energy choke point, force a reckoning, turned out to be a weapon that couldn't fully close on its primary target. Because Saudi Arabia had spent 45 years building a door in the other direction. The pipeline covered roughly 80 to 85% of the kingdom's pre-war export capacity. Global oil prices rose, meaning Saudi Arabia was earning more per barrel at Yanbu than it had been through the Hormuz before the war. That makes Saudi Arabia's case different from other Gulf countries that did not have an easier way out of the Hormuz chokehold. But there is a real cost, and it's significant. One, the UAE. It was hit harder by Iran than anyone else. It wanted retaliation. Saudi Arabia, however, wanted de-escalation. They'd already split on Yemen, and on April 28, the UAE left OPEC after 60 years without telling Riyadh. The exit was a signal. Abu Dhabi was done following Riyadh's lead. Then number 2, defense spending. Saudi Arabia posted its largest quarterly fiscal deficit since 2018 in the first quarter of 2026. That's $33.5 billion, driven by a 26% surge in defense spending. Then number 3, foreign investment. Foreign investors that MBS's Vision 2030 needed now had to price in the possibility that a drone could clear the defenses at any moment and hit whatever they had built. NEOM construction contracts were cancelled or suspended. The Line, Vision 2030's most famous project, already scaled back before the war, was scaled back even further. Iranian drones had proved the kingdom was vulnerable in ways the US security umbrella couldn't fully prevent. The war broke the foundational assumption of Vision 2030, that Saudi Arabia could modernize in peace. And yet, there's a twist. The war also clarified what Vision 2030 should actually be. The projects that survived the reassessment are the ones that don't go through Hormuz. The NEOM green hydrogen plant exports via the Red Sea. AI infrastructure doesn't travel by tanker. Data centers don't need safe passage through the Gulf. The war exposed the vulnerability of oil infrastructure and in doing so, made the case for everything else. In a nutshell, Iran and Saudi Arabia are not enemies who occasionally make peace. They are rivals competing for the crown. But they also know that an all-out direct war between them would tear their countries apart, leaving no crown to fight for in the first place. The Petroline wasn't an offensive weapon, it was a hedge. That same logic, to never have a single point of failure, is what Saudi Arabia is trying to build into its entire economy through Vision 2030. Red Sea infrastructure, digital infrastructure, revenue streams that don't require safe passage through a strait Iran can mine, and Patriots to protect those streams. The covert strikes in March 2026 were the same logic applied to war. Respond proportionately, keep de-escalation possible. Don't go so hard that the channel closes permanently. The 30,000 Iranian pilgrims landing for Hajj in the middle of a war are that channel kept open. And that's the link.